Hello, my name is Mitch. In this module, we will be reviewing the various functional uses of the DOE NRC Form 741 Nuclear Material Transaction Report, including domestic, import and export, and one-party reporting. To conclude, we will discuss how to correct, adjust prior reported nuclear material transaction reports. In the prior module, we reviewed the alphabet for NEMIS relating to nuclear material transactions. Let's now take a look at specific types of transactions reported, beginning with domestic type transactions. Domestic transactions involve the transfer of nuclear material from one U.S. facility to another U.S. facility. Especially for U.S. DOE and NSA sites, in-transit activity may come into play when reporting domestic transactions to NEMIS. In-transit accounting is specific to DOE transaction reporting, not NRC. All shipments made by the end of the month and reported to NEMIS by the closing date for that month are considered received and should be placed on the accounting books for the receiving facility and removed from the books for the shipping facility. Receipt of DOE-owned material must be acknowledged during the same month as the shipment, regardless of whether the nuclear material has been physically received. What are the in-transit accounting requirements that are the responsibility of the shipper? The shipper, during the last 5 calendar days of the month, shall provide the receiver with essential details about the shipment that had taken place. This includes the transfer series, which includes the shipper risk, receiver risk, and transaction number, the material type, the element and isotope weights, the project numbers, which would include the owner code of G, any obligation information that would be contained within data blocks 17 through 21 of the DOE NRC Form 741. Also, the number of items involved in the shipment would be included, the composition code, and the date of shipment. In-transit accounting requirements being the responsibility of the receiver assure that DOE-owned material is slotted into a receiving project by submitting an Action Code J transaction Form 741 to NEMIS. Remember that the action date for the J Form 741 must be in the same month as the shipment. Submit an N or U transaction notifying of delay in measurement as appropriate. If there will be a measurement delay in submitting the final B, which is accepting shipper's values, receipt 741, or E, receiver's measurement 741. Let's review an example where in-transit accounting was performed. The shipper's data on file with NEMIS, and then the receiver's interim project data, the Action Code J Form 741, is also on file with the shipper's quantities during the same month. In addition, the receiver's final data that was submitted during the month of the shipment, where the receiver's data is used in issuing reports and determining inventory balances for the receiver at the end of the month. All reporting for this event is complete and was reported within the same month. Our second example for in-transit accounting is as follows. The shipper's data is on file with only the receiver's interim data. The J Action Code transaction is on file at the end of the month. For this month, NEMIS uses the J Action Code shipper-based data to determine inventory balances for the receiver. During month 2, the receiver's final data is on file with NEMIS. The shipper-based Action Code J data is backed out, and the receiver's final data is used in determining inventory balances for the receiver. For transfers between DOE and NSA sites and the Department of Defense, DOE and NSA sites, also called contractors, are to obtain prior written authorization from the program office responsible for the DoD activity or from the Defense Program Administrator. Authorization for transfer to the Naval Reactors Program will be obtained from the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Naval Reactors at the NNSA. All transfers require the completion of a DOE NRC Form 741 by the contractor. The Department of Defense is not required to submit a DOE NRC Form 741. Their portion of a data set will be generated by NIMS. What is the process for transfers from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to the Department of Defense? For these shipments, DoD will contact Department of Energy headquarters to determine which DOE site will act as a liaison between the DoD and the NRC licensee facility. The responsible program office will designate the DOE site or field element to handle the transfer. The designated DOE site will advise the licensee when to initiate a DOE NRC Form 741 in accordance with preparation and distribution instructions that apply to the licensee. Nuclear material categories involved in the transfers mentioned in the previous slide include 91B, which describes nuclear material designated for use by the DoD in the interest of national defense, and 91C, which is nuclear material designated for sale, lease, or loan to other nations in the interest of mutual defense. In addition to the ability of the DOE NRC Form 741 to report domestic transfer activity, import-export transactions are also reported to NIMS using the same form. How does NIMS distinguish import and export transactions? Imports and exports involve transfers of nuclear material between one U.S. facility and a foreign facility. Remember that it is easy to identify a foreign risk code. Look at the first character of the risk. It must be an R for foreign facilities other than Caribbean-based sites, which begin with 2. Key information to remember when reporting exports of nuclear material include Box 15, found in the DOE NRC Form 741 header. A valid export license must be listed. The terms of the export license will include a maximum amount of material that may be exported over the lifetime of the license, as well as relevant foreign obligations and other eligible parties for these transfers. As with domestic reporting, shippers' data will be recorded in Box 26. Please note that if the export involves fuel assemblies, each individual fuel assembly should be recorded on its own line. Also, exports of one or more reportable units of nuclear material should be documented as a transaction on the DOE NRC Form 741. Also, remember that reporting of the batch identification is required when reporting exports. For reporting imports of nuclear material, imports of one or more reportable units of nuclear material should be documented as a transaction on the DOE NRC Form 741. The receiving facility will complete a Form 741 for both the shipper and the receiver and will make sure to use the shipper's batch name on both the shipper's and receiver's documents. A valid import license, such as the general license called GENLIC GENLIC, will be included in Box 15. Shipper's data will be recorded in Box 26, and receiver's data will be recorded in Box 27. As with exports, the batch identification is required to be reported on shipper and receiver import 741s. Another type of DOE NRC Form 741 reported to NEMIS are called one-party transactions. These transactions are submitted by U.S. facilities to record on-site nuclear material changes that result in a change to their site's inventory. A one-party transaction is a DOE NRC Form 741 transaction used to report an on-site gain or loss of reportable nuclear materials to NEMIS. It is not part of a shipment or receipt involving another facility. So, how are one-party transactions used? The primary purpose of the one-party type Form 741 is to report gains and losses of nuclear material, which impacts a facility's inventory. Also, one-party Form 741s are used to report standalone concise notes, particularly for the IAEA. In special cases, one-party transactions are used to correct previously reported data and to report obligation activity. Another use is to send one-party transactions to NEMIS before or at the time of the facility's reported annual and material status report, known as the MSR. If it is necessary for a facility to correct previously reported data, using a one-party transaction may be the best way to make certain changes. A NIMS analyst will assist you if these instances are necessary. The process for reporting a one-party transaction is the same as when reporting shipments and receipt DOE NRC Form 741s, except for the following unique nuances. Your risk code is used for both the shipper and receiver. You will always use the action code M when reporting a one-party transaction. We are introducing a new NIMS report code called the Inventory Change Type, ICT, which will be used when reporting one-party transactions. This code will delineate whether quantities being listed are increasing or decreasing inventory for a given type of material. Corrections made to previously reported one-party transactions are done with an additional Form 741 document using the M action code. There is not a unique action code representing a one-party correction, like we have seen for shipper and receiver Form 741 corrections. Note that the total gross weight found in the Form 741 header is not reported. Total gross weight is only reported on original shipper Form 741s when the action code is A. Also, the number of items found in the details section of the Form 741 is not required in all circumstances. Number of items is not reported on detail lines on one-party transactions, except for ICT lines miscellaneous shipment and miscellaneous receipt, where reporting of the number of items is optional. And finally, notice that there are numerous special edit checks applicable to the nuanced definition of inventory change type codes that are used on a one-party transaction. And now we will go into more specifics regarding the new code for one-party on-site changes called the Inventory Change Type, also called ICT, and also called Use Code. Please note that there are different guidance for NRC licensee facilities and DOE NNSA sites. We will first review the guidance for NRC facilities, beginning with one-party on-site gains. One on-site gain for NRC licensee facilities involve production. They would use the use code NP. For any kind of blending activities like nuclear material going from enriched to depleted, code ED, normal to enriched, code NE, normal to depleted, code ND, depleted to enriched, code DE, or depleted to normal, code DN. They would use an alphabetic code of 2 characters to represent the change. Also, we have a category of receipts miscellaneous, which would use an inventory change type of 3-4. This use code would be reported for cases where material is received at the facility but were not able to be reported to NIMS using a traditional Form 741 receipt. These inventory change types represent on-site gains for NRC licensing facilities. For DOE and NSA sites, there are numerous options available for reporting on-site gains in one-party transactions. Inventory change type 11 represents procurement from DOE and NSA. Code 13 is purchase procurement for the account of DOE and NSA. ICT 21 is for nuclear production. Use code 22 represents from other materials, the resultant nuclear material type gain from a blending activity. Code 34 is miscellaneous receipts, the same as discussed on the NRC gain slide. ICT 37 represents procurement by others. Codes 38 and 39 represent donated material, one being from DOE NNSA to others, and the other being from others to DOE NNSA. Note that DOE NNSA site inventory change types are always numeric in nature, while NRC licensee facility inventory change types may be numeric or alphanumeric. NRC licensee facilities have more options available for reporting on-site losses. The use code TN represents decay. EN represents two other materials, which involves a blending action, which may be the alpha reporting of ED, NE, ND, DE, DN, or EE. This reporting represents the initial quantity of material prior to the blend occurring. ICT code 54 represents shipments miscellaneous. This use code would be reported for cases where material is shipped from the facility, but the facility is not able to report to NEMIS using a traditional Form 741 shipment. Code LN is fission and transmutation. Code LD represents normal operational losses and measured discards. The use code MF represents inventory difference. Finally, ICT code 65 represents rounding bias. Note that you should use the correct change code when performing blending operations, and they must be paired on the same transaction. As mentioned earlier, inventory change types for NRC are both numeric and alphanumeric in nature. DOE and NSA sites also have multiple options regarding on-site losses and the type of inventory change. The most common uses of these ICT codes for DOE are 54 shipments miscellaneous, 65 rounding bias, 71 degradation to other materials, the resultant material type of a blending activity, code 72 decay, use code 73 fission and transmutation, code 74 normal operational losses measured discards, 76 is for approved write-offs, and ICT code 77 for inventory differences. An easy reference for interpretation of inventory change types is that if the numeric code is less than 40, by nature, the quantities listed on the line on the Form 741 represents an inventory gain. If the numeric code is greater than 40, by nature, the positive quantities listed on the Form 741 line represent a reduction in inventory. All these site losses represent a removal from your inventory. For ICT codes 65 rounding bias and 77 inventory difference, if a negative quantity is specified, this negative value actually represents an increase to your inventory. Remember that for blending operations, use the following inventory change type codes. For DOE and NSA sites, use a combination of ICT codes 22 and 71, where 71 line represents the original material and 22 represents what the material became. For NRC licensee facilities, report alpha codes to represent the source material and the resultant material. For example, if material was blended from enriched to normal, it would be the alpha code EN. Additionally, remember that for blending, line pairing is required. One line denotes the original type of material, and the other line denotes the resultant type of material. The last type of transaction that we will be discussing is the adjustment, which is when a U.S. facility reports the correction of previously reported information that had been sent to NEMIS. One type of adjustment involves a process code change. You may change or delete data on previously submitted DOE NRC Form 741s that are in an open month by resubmitting using a specific process code. Recall that process code C is for the replacement of a data set, and code D is for the deletion of a data set, and can only be used during an open month. When a transaction adjustment is required for DOE NRC Form 741s in a processing month that has already been closed, an adjustment document will have to be reported to NEMIS. This reporting will involve the introduction of the code correction number, back reference lines, and the use of the action code C, D, M, or P. Note that the reporting of back reference information is optional for DOE and NSA sites. So, when is an adjusting Form 741 required to be reported to NEMIS? An adjustment is required when correcting previously reported transactions that have been processed in NEMIS and the month in which they were processed is already closed. Once a transaction is closed, modification of the transaction is no longer permitted. Thus, a correcting 741 must be submitted instead. How would someone know what are open and closed NEMIS processing months? NEMIS normally closes the transaction database processing month around the 22nd of each month for the previous month's data that has been received. There are two action codes for the DOE NRC Form 741 that are specific to performing adjustment or corrections to prior reported data. Action code C is used for corrections by the shipper and can be used to accomplish the adjustment of previously reported shipments or the acknowledgement of receiver adjustments or the acceptance of receiver adjustments. Note that action code C correction must be compatible with the receiver side of the transaction if a numeric correction number is issued. If an alpha correction number is issued, the receiver does not have to respond with a correction. The action code D will be used by a receiver for corrections and can be used to accomplish the adjustment of previously reported receipts, the acknowledgement of the shipper's adjustment, or the acceptance of shipper adjustments. Note that the action code D correction must be compatible with the shipper's correction. Additionally, the only receivers 741s that can be correctly adjusted are receipt documents accepting shipper's values, which is action code B, or receipt documents of receiver's measurement, that's action code E. Corrections of one-party transactions will continue to use the action code M with the addition of a correction identifier to distinguish it as an adjustment. This Form 741 is used for adjusting previously reported one-party gains and losses. The action code P will continue to be used for DOE-owned material that had previously been reported on a project transfer, and again, the correction identifier distinguishes it as an adjustment. There are several cases for adjusting a DOE NRC Form 741 form where fields within the form will need to be negated. This negation is mathematically removing the quantities of material originally reported. There are a total of 5 numeric fields to mitigate on an adjustment transaction report if they were originally reported. These fields are number of items, element weight, element limit of error, isotope weight, and isotope limit of error. All 5 of the negating fields are located in the details section of the DOE NRC Form 741 in fields 26 and 27 as shown here. The back reference component is another feature to consider when reporting DOE NRC Form 741 adjustments to NEMIS. Every detail line declared in an adjustment transaction, a 741 form, shall specify a back reference. The back reference provides an association with the other document lines in either the current or the source document that are affected by the adjustment line. Note that reporting of the back reference component are only required for NRC licensee facilities. Adjustment back reference components consist of a one-character correction identifier, referred to as a change digit, and a two-character line number. The correction identifier may be alphabetic or numeric, and that consists of the first character of the back reference component. This character matches the correction number on the DOE NRC Form 741. This identifier could reference the was Form 741 document being corrected, or it could be a reference to the should be Form 741 document that is now being completed. The line number consists of the second and third digit of the back reference component, and that line number could either reference the was detail line being corrected or the should be detail line of the Form 741 document that is now being completed. Adjustment change digits can be either alphabetic or numeric. A numeric correction number on a DOE NRC Form 741 requires a response Form 741 from the other party involved in the shipment or receipt. An alphabetic correction number does not require a NEMIS Form 741 reporting response from the other party. The facility reporting a DOE NRC Form 741 must provide an action date when reporting an adjustment transaction. The action date on an adjustment can be the same as your original transaction document, or it can be the current date when the adjustment is being reported to NEMIS. In either case, be sure to report the difference from your adjustment/correction on your next annual physical inventory and material balance report. Note that submission of material balance reports are only required for NRC licensee facilities. Now for a quick discussion regarding the electronic submission formats for the DOE NRC Form 741. Electronic fillable forms can be downloaded and used to save completed forms in XML, which stands for Extensible Markup Language Format. The XML files can then be emailed to the NEMIS mailbox. The D23 and D24 directories are available for use to set up XML reporting on existing reporting software at U.S. facilities. There is also the Safeguards Management software called SAMS that is available for download and can assist in the management and submission of electronic DOE NRC forms. Regarding transaction report due dates, remember a U.S. facility reporting DOE NRC Form 741s to NEMIS must report shipments within 1 working day, receipts within 10 working days, and a DOE NSA site or NRC licensee facility must report error corrections within 1 working day of the discovery of the need for the correction. There are a large number of validation checks performed on facility-reported transactions. The numbering scheme is important when reporting on the DOE NRC Form 741. Each transaction must have its own unique number. Several verification checks are performed on the owner code, one being that the reported owner code must be consistent with other aspects of the Form 741 document, such as the project number if applicable. Blending operations must report the appropriate type of inventory change codes, such as 22/71 for DOE and NSA sites, or EN, DE, etc. for NRC licensee facilities. Also, all blending must be performed in pairs on the Form 741 detail line representing the original state of the nuclear material, and an additional detail line representing what the nuclear material became. Duplicate data sets are not permitted. Remember that the codes shipper risk, receiver risk, transaction number, correction number, process code, and action code define a unique DOE NRC Form 741 document. Only one of those are allowed in NEMIS. If reported more than once, a duplication error will result. As previously discussed, certain process codes are no longer available for use after a monthly period has closed. If a facility reports a process code C to replace a prior reported Form 741 and the NEMIS reporting period for that 741 form is closed, a validation error will be produced in NEMIS. There are numerous other possible issues that could occur during reporting of the DOE NRC Form 741 involving the use of risk codes, import-export licenses, the timing of reporting, and the correction of transactions, among others. Be sure and refer to the NEMIS User's Guide or the NRC New Regs BR6 for more information.